I'm more of the pagan
Right.
in
Okay.
terms of sense. In in our in our studies, we do have more than one god.
Right. Okay.
Uh, the,
So what would
the,
what would go on?
no, go on.
So what would be your contention with like Christian theology?
Uh, with there are a lot of parts in Christian theology that don't make a lot of sense. Um, for me personally, um, it doesn't. For me personally, I don't understand how if a person was to have died from like crucifixion, how a person is able to come back, and like the start of the earth as well. There's something has to have something. Yeah, I agree. Something has to have created it, but something has to have also made that creator and made the creator before that.
Well, we would say like since we believe Jesus is God, God like he's all powerful, right? So we would say him, resurrecting is not, necessarily a problem because we would say he has the power to do so because he is God, right?
Mm, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's the like I said, the God made everything. The how Jesus was resurrected from the dead. The There's a lot of parts I struggle with as well. It's some biblical texts as well. Can't remember which ones they were. There's a lot of. I mean, I don't mean to sound offensive when I say this, but there is quite a bit of
Yeah.
some like hypocrisy as well, as there is in any religion.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some hypocrisy, some misinterpretations, but it's the main thing of how can something create something when that something hasn't been created to make that something.
Wait, so like what is like the something in question? What do you think is like the thing being created? Do you think Jesus is created?
um, well, everything's got to have been created by something, but the creator, God, what really made him? Who
Well,
created said create? Who created that creator that made the people, the animals, the earth, the water, everything? Who's the person
well,
that created God?
we would say no one created God because like if we're gonna say like God was created, that would presuppose God exists, qua contingent being, right? But God isn't like subject to casual regress, so we would say he is a necessary, unconditioned reality. So we like to say what caused an uncaused being, that'd just be a category error. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but for some for there to be like I said, God, there has to be something that creates that God, and like if we look at science, how it dates back to like Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, the first humans coming from monkeys or apes, and we look at the Cambrian explosion, which we were all just parasites before becoming fully grown living animals.
You're talking about the Big Bang.
No. The not the Cambrian
Oh,
explosion, the Cambrian explosion, where
right.
um, little microscopic specks came into life as full grown, um, not full grown, but like fully able animals like fish, shrimp, all stuff like that. I don't believe that something can be created by a celestial being unless that celestial being has been created themselves.
But then that would just lead to an infinite like chain of gods basically, and that it would just there'd be no final cause. So is that what you're suggesting? Because God by definition is the uncaused cause, right? So we would say causality, like It only applies insofar as something that is within the contingent order. God is not like, God is pure act, right? So he's not contingent, he's not subject to change. So that's why we would say God, by definition, is the uncaused being that caused all, right? Even Jesus said, like, all things were created through me. So that's just another affirmation of, we believe God caused all things. We don't believe God is created. I think if you're gonna say God is created, you would have to prove it.
Well, it's like how there is like a few ways to not prove that he was created, but prove that there must be a form of creation, like the Big Bang. That happened so many years ago, and that was at the point where space was an empty void. And then I don't know the complete science behind it, but then eventually there was a huge bang that scattered stars throughout the solar system, creating galaxies, creating pretty much everything we know today. Like I said, stars, planets, um, the sun, all of that will have been created, like I said, by the Big Bang, or or even the universe as a whole. So, would it be fair to compare God to the thing that started all creation, the Big Bang?
Well, I wouldn't say God is the Big Bang. We could say God caused it, because like the person who invented the Big Bang was a Catholic priest, right? He was a theist.
Hmm.
So we would, I mean, I think is, I don't really have a set position on this, but I think it is appropriate to say, like, we can believe in the Big Bang. We would just say God was the one who caused it. But like, I don't have a problem with affirming it or denying it. I don't really have a set position on it.
Yeah, but like saying God caused the Big Bang, God could not physically cause the Big Bang because God wouldn't have existed during the Big Bang. There was nothing, there was no matter before the Big Bang. Nothing existed before the Big Bang.
Yeah,
So
so
how
how
could a
would you be
being cause
measuring
it?
that?
Uh, I'd probably put it in like more of a scientific perspective of like the atoms that form everything around us, the the electromagnetic fields around different planets and stars, whatever the Big Bang spewed out. The Because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That is of scientific knowledge. But to
So
say,
where do you
go
believe
on.
that energy came from?
Um, it's a hard thing for anyone to wrap their head around where energy came from, because, like I said, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, which means all energy has always been around, even before the Big Bang. But it's that energy that caused the Big Bang. Um, but if we were to say like the Big Bang was caused by God, as you mentioned earlier, it would not make the statement valid as well. Like I said, God did not exist when the Big Bang happened. God was not there to create the Big Bang because nothing was present before the Big Bang. So that means
Yeah, I
a
mean,
celestial being like God would have had to come out of the Big Bang, but and not cause it.
I think like you're presupposing that nothing existed like before the Big Bang. Like we would say, we don't believe like God is subject to time, right? So you couldn't really like measure him in that sense. You wouldn't be able to like say, oh, there's God, that he caused the Big Bang. So like we don't believe he's subject to time, right? So I think like saying there's nothing measurable prior to the Big Bang, I don't think that necessarily proves that, God was not the cause of it. I mean, like the person who came up with the theory was literally a theist. So I don't think, that necessarily disproves God existing prior to it.
I wouldn't say it disproves. I wouldn't say it disproves God's. I would, in fact, no. Sorry, when I can speak, I would say it disproves God's presence before the Big Bang, but I wouldn't say it disproves after, because like there's a lot that was created. God could have maybe existed after the Big Bang as, um, if I'm correct, a celestial being. You can correct me if I am wrong. Um, but like death's always been around. If we were to compare like the god of, not to compare, but if we were to bring like the god of death into this, there wouldn't have been a god for death without creation. No one can control death really, but if we were to talk about the god of death, no god can be created without, well, creation.
Wait,
Um,
so do you believe like God just randomly popped into existence like after the Big Bang?
it's most likely possible. Yeah, I do believe that it is most likely possible
Wait,
that he was
hold up.
there after the Big Bang, not
Do you,
before.
so you don't believe God's eternal?
Uh, well, it depends on the definition of it. It depends on your definition of eternal.
Like I mean, like he there was never a time where he did not exist. That's kind of like wrong terminology, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Uh, no, I don't believe he's completely eternal. He may be able to stick
Wait,
around
so
for like the rest of time. He might be there for. Sorry, when I can speak. God might be around when the rapture happens, but he cannot have been there before the Big Bang.
I mean, I think like this. Wait, just a clarifying question before like I state that. Do you believe like the Big Bang caused God to exist and then he just exists forevermore?
Yeah,
Interesting. I've never heard of it. So you don't you would reject God being pure act then? Like you would say God is contingent.
yeah, I would. I don't deny his existence. Um, as I said, being a pagan, we do have many gods, so I cannot deny that there is a Christian God in existence.
Wait,
But
so do you believe the Christian God actually exists or is like more of a virtual thing? Like
I do believe he does physically exist.
so
I
hold up,
did.
you like the God like presented in like Christian theology. Do you believe that's true? All of that's true?
I Yeah, I do believe there is, because like when it comes to religion, there's a whole
Yeah.
pantheon. You've
So
got like you've got the Christian God, you've got the pagan gods, you've got like Muslim gods. All gods have come from somewhere.
wait, so when when Christ says like all things were created through me, and when like in Colossians I think it says, for in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, all authorities, etc. What's your view? Like that would when it says all things were created through me, how would that make sense if there was creation prior to the existence of God? Because I don't. If all things were created through God and He is the cause of all things, if there's creation prior to God, He did not create all things. So that would not make sense.
If you put it into more of a scientific perspective, there has to be a creator able to make the creator of all things. There would not be a creator that then creates another creator that then goes and creates another creator, really. There has to be a subject of matter, of like physical matter, like the ones, like the stuff that's all around us, like your walls, your floor, your windows. Something has to have made that, or like the atoms that you get in the sand, the atoms that come from like the air, the oxygen, the nitrogen, the carbon dioxide, all those gases after the Big Bang will have been expelled and built up into more things.
So
Like I said with the stars, the sun, Jupiter, which is a gaseous planet. A lot of other things has come from atoms.
so
So
just
go
to
on.
quickly clarify, do you believe there's one supreme creator that caused the Big Bang, or do you think all of the existences of God came after the Big Bang? Like the Big Bang caused God. Is that what you believe? Because like
Yeah,
it
the
is.
existences before the Big Bang created God.
Yeah. So I mean, once again, that doesn't really like answer the question. If Christ says all things were created through me, that would he would either be lying then, or he's either lying or telling the truth. In Christian theology, Christ is God, so he would be telling the truth, right? So when he says all things were created through me, that says all things. So that would mean including the Big Bang. So I mean, I don't really see how you make sense of that.
In the sci-
If God
in the,
came like after the
sorry,
Big Bang, that would mean he didn't create it.
it's kind of a hard thing to measure out because, like I said, the Big Bang did happen, and there is some scientific knowledge of it, which I do not know to myself. But I do know that the Big Bang did happen. We do know that the only reason the Big Bang happened was because of a mixture of. Oh, I'm trying to think of what it was a mixture of. A mixture of like different matter, like gases, um, liquids. And then they've all just exploded out and expanded. It's not that I question how that Jesus said that creation runs through him. I I mean, in the religious context, I can see it. Someone has created something, but or someone has created something through someone else. Like, but I don't think it would have been the whole entire universe. May have been like the stuff we have today, like the materials to build our houses, the materials we used to bring us water, like the water pipes, the materials that we use to harvest food, um, the tools we use to slaughter animals to use them as meat. They've probably given us something, but they cannot have given us everything. Because if they were to have given us everything, it wouldn't. I don't think that would make a lot of sense. To give someone everything or to make everything means to make every single speck. That includes like the stars, the um, the planets, the gases, the water, the the magma that flows underneath the Earth's crust. But that would also imply that natural disasters were given to us as well, like volcanic eruptions, tornadoes, wildfires, fast floods, earthquakes, and many others. That would imply that they were created and given to us as well.
Well, I think just to quickly touch on that, I think the natural disasters they're a result of the corruption of the world that we cause, right? We can evidently see, like I think anyone who's rational, we can see humans are corrupt, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah. So like we would say, the world is corrupt. So like all these natural quote unquote natural disasters, we would say like that is a result of the corruption of the world. But on you said in that verse, like you don't take it to be as like literally all things, right? Just to quickly clarify, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, because no
Yeah,
one could have
so
created all things.
yeah, so in the Greek, the Greek word used for all there is pas, right? That means all, any, every, the whole. So when in that verse, when he's speaking, he's not like speaking metaphorically, like, oh, a lot of things. Like the Greek word used is as I said, is whole, right?
Hmm.
So I would just say, like, if you go into the Greek, that's the context of it being said is like everything, literally everything. But because I'm kind of interested because I've never like heard anyone who has your beliefs before. So like, do you believe in abiogenesis?
Um, by yeah, the biogenesis. Yeah, sorry, I had
Yeah,
to look that up.
yeah,
I
no
had
problem.
a brain fog moment. But yeah, everything's got to have been produced from something. Like I did mention with the Cambrian explosion. No, not the Cambrian explosion. The Cambrian explosion.
Yeah. So I personally don't believe in abiogenesis. I think if we look at it philosophically, I think it's illogical, right? So I think like if we go about this logic, like premise one, no effect can be greater in kind than its cause. Premise two, non-living matter lacks the essential properties of life, because the belief of abiogenesis is that life arises from non-life, but even so, non-life has no passive capacity for life, right? So premise three, abiogenesis says life came from non-living matter. Conclusion one, therefore, abiogenesis posits an effect, which is life, that exceeds the capacity of its cause. Therefore, that would be violating, metaphysical causality, right? So I think like if we look at it from that side, I think abiogenesis is illogical.
Uh, I, it's well. Let me. If I just give me a second to think. It's not that we
No problem.
came. It's not just like we came from nothing. Because like, as we know, we there is a lot of living things. It doesn't have to be animals. There is a lot of living plants. But then where did those plants come from? The grass is a living plant. The flowers are living plants. Evident by the plant cells and the what's the term, photosynthesis,
Yeah.
taking in light, taking in water, and the asexual reproduction. Um,
Yeah, but I
but
think like
if
sorry, go on.
sorry,
No, so
no, go
sorry.
on.
I thought you finished. Carry on.
No, no, I'll let you go on.
Oh yeah, so I was just gonna say like non-living matter, like I'm sure we can agree, non-living matter lacks the essential properties of life, right?
That is true.
Yeah, so like what lacks all orientation to life cannot by itself produce it. So there is no actualizing cause. I think that's the point like I'm trying to say. If nothing truly has no properties, it cannot cause or produce anything. I mean, I think you're saying you would reject that the use of nothing, but like the definition of abiogenesis is that life arises from non-life.
Well, there is a lot more to biogenesis than just not life arising from more life. That is textbook definition, but there is a lot more. Nothing can be created from nothing. That's plain simple common knowledge. Nothing can be created from nothing. But as
Did you?
mentioned with the Cambrian explosion, we were just at some point tiny little specks within the ocean. We were tiny living specks that would have been created from the Big Bang. That we've been living in the ocean. That we've been living in the oceans for so long that we've not even been noticed as life. We couldn't even be thought of as life. But we would like just little small little bacteria in the ocean. And then eventually we evolved, as mentioned of Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. We eventually just evolved and kept evolving. And then, as said, the Cambrian explosion, where everything came to full subject life, like your fish, your shrimps, everything. And then we've just evolved more, able to then go on sea, not on sea, on land. Um, After obviously the build up of the atmosphere and the other spheres that blanket our planet from the sun. And then we've evolved from fish into um, amphibious creatures, and from amphibious creatures to land creatures, and then came like the dinosaurs.
Yeah, so I
And
mean, I
then
think,
go on.
would you agree that your claim is something comes from nothing, and nothing, like nothing here is being defined as non-living matter that lacks the essential properties of life? Like,
No, no,
like
no.
that's
Nothing can be created by nothing. But there is always
so that that
something
that
that can
logically that
create
logically
something.
follows that something can't be created from nothing, right?
Something, no, yeah, you're right. Something cannot be
Yes, like,
created from nothing, but there is always something that can create something else.
so what is the ultimate cause here? Because otherwise you would just have to go to infinite regress, which is illogical. It's like what is the first like thing? If it's not God, what is the first thing that has caused everything?
The Big Bang.
So what caused the Big Bang?
Uh, I will have to look this up because I cannot.
Yeah, no problem.
Uh, I'm back. According to the Big Bang theory,
Yeah,
all things considered, this is a scientific theory. Nobody knows
yeah,
exactly what happened. That no one knows exactly what happened. There was a point in time where there was a massive buildup of gases and heat that eventually just kept growing and growing until then there was a huge explosion within space, which this one's a bit off topic here. We have managed to actually capture pictures of the Big Bang through the speed of light and through like light speed as well. Um, but going back on topic, that explosion eventually created plenty of debris, gaseous debris, and eventually it's created like the galaxies that we know today, like the Milky Way, for example, the galaxy we live
yeah. So I
in.
would say like, oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
So I would say like you can say that the Big Bang is like the ultimate cause, but like I think by affirming the Big Bang, that's like already supposing a change in reality, like, and every change presupposes something prior to it. So that I mean that's what I would say to it. But I would also say like the Big Bang is like you can just say it's a scientific theory, but it doesn't like for a couple of reasons it doesn't explain like why there was a singularity in the first place, right? It also doesn't explain why there's a law bound, intelligible, and expanding universe, right? I think this is like it was originally created by theist, the theory. I think like over time, people who don't believe in God being the ultimate cause, I think they lean on this theory. Right? I'm not saying this is you, but it's like what I see a lot. I think instead of like appealing to God, which I think would be more logical, they would just say that, it's a Big Bang. But like earlier, your critique of, the God being the ultimate cause, you would say, well, you would need like a cause prior to it. So like, why would you not need, why do you need a cause prior to God, but not a cause prior to the Big Bang?
Because if God is the creator of all things, then who actually created God themselves?
I mean,
Something has to come from something.
yeah, so like,
Nothing can come from
firstly, I
nothing.
think if we apply the same standard to the Big Bang, I think it still fails. But to answer you, I mean, once again, like causality is only applied insofar as something that is within contingent order, right? God is not in contingent order, so therefore we can't apply causality to him. We believe God is pure act and he exists, um he is a necessary reality, right? We don't believe God is in like subject to time or subject to change. So I think to say like you would need a cause prior to God, I don't think that follows. I think if we are, gonna use that standard, I think if we apply the same thing to the Big Bang, that also fails.
Mm. I I it's a really rough topic because
Yeah.
as I did say, nothing can come from nothing. Only something can come from something else. So
Yes, I think like you
the
do need an
question,
ultimate cause. Like
yeah.
if you are gonna put between the Big Bang and God, God, in epistemology, God, he's the explanation, right? Like if we
Mm.
look at the Big Bang, there is no explanation on why it happened. And it is also a theory. I would say God, we can prove God metaphysically. There's so many arguments to prove God. I can give some to you. Like there's an argument for motion, there's tag, there's the Kalam cosmological argument, there's an argument from graduation, the fine tuning argument. There's so many arguments for God, but like if we look at the Big Bang, it's one theory that was created by a theist who was Catholic who believed in an eternal God, right? So I think like if we look at this logically, I think it's much more appropriate to say God is the ultimate cause.
But if we were to say God was the ultimate cause, we need a cause for God. We would need a cause for God because, like I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive, but
No,
nothing
so
can come from nothing. Something has to come from something. Well, where did the something being God come
so
from the something else?
so when you say like just repeat that again. You say nothing can't come from nothing.
Mm,
So how are you observing that? You're observing that and you're applying that to things that in the contingent order. Like when we look at, for example, I have an AirPod on my desk. Like we know this can't just randomly appear. It's logical, right? But
mm,
like that's contingent. Like if I look at my friend, I obviously know he came from his parents. Like he doesn't just spawn in, you know, but he is contingent, right? When we apply the standard to God, who is not contingent, is not in the contingent order, we are presupposing like that he exists qua contingent being, which is just not the case, right? We don't believe he's subject to change. So when we say like, well, there has to be a cause for God, actually there doesn't, because God is not contingent. He's not, he's pure act. He has no potentiality, so therefore he can't be caused, right?
mm. There's I do want in fact I do want to bring that part up. I noticed in when you said that obviously your friend did come from his
Yeah,
parents. It also does make me question. Obviously Jesus in biblical text he came from the Virgin Mary.
yeah.
We are, but e- even if you are religious, you know the science of conceiving. You must have sex to conceive a child. But then, how was Mary conceived if
Well,
if she is still a
a couple of
virgin?
things there. Like, firstly, before we go on to that, I will talk on that. I just really, because this is a really important topic, I do want to make sure we have clarified what's the correct position here. So, like, do you agree now?
I don't believe there really can be a correct position because
Really?
Uh,
What do you believe? Like, there's an objective truth?
there may be there may be quite a lot of objective truths when it comes to like the creation of everything, the creation of God, the creation of the Big Bang. There is no real correct way to put it. We don't know anything. Nobody knows anything about how. Like you said, it's all just theories.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think
but
like if we look at those theories and we look at what is more logical, I think we can make a logical we can slowly deduct what is the correct position. Like I'm not saying we know 100%. I don't think like anyone like knows. Like I think there's a lot of things we don't know, but we just make appropriate assumptions, right? So I think
mhm.
when we look at this, if we nail it down to it's either the Big Bang or God. Big Bang was created by a theist who believes in an eternal God. Um, there's so many explanations and metaphysical arguments for God. So I think like we can make an appropriate decision here on what is the correct position. So
No, that like I said, there's no real correct position because these arguments have to source from some type of theory. All things have a theory, whether it be religion or non-religion. There has to have been a theory to cause these arguments.
so do if you don't believe we can have a correct position, is your position correct in that?
No, like I said, there is no real correct position.
So so saying there is no real correct position, if that's true, then there is a correct position. If that's not true, then there is a correct position. Like that doesn't really make sense. It's like that's if you're gonna say, well, no, there's not really a truth. That is a truth claim in itself.
Mm, there is we will find out a correct position eventually, but at the moment there cannot be one.
So
If we
when will
think about
we
it
find out?
scientifically,
But when are we gonna find out? That's because like
we don't
even
know.
you say, see, that's the thing. Even you saying you're claiming that's true, so that's a truth claim in itself. If that's true, then there are true things to be observed. If that's not true, then there are true things to be observed. Like you get what I mean?
I do, and I don't, because, like I said, obviously there will be a true position that comes to us, but we cannot deduct that correct position yet.
Why? I mean, like, I think this all goes back to what is the problem with like God being the ultimate cause.
There, there is really no ultimate cause. If you were to put it in a scientific perspective, if there was an ultimate cause, we would have it would take us many years to figure out what it was. It could take like upon tens to thousands of years to
How
just figure out that singular cause.
how
If
many
we're
years
speaking
do you think like
scientifically,
humans have been in existence?
millions. No, not
R-
millions. A good few thousand from
Right. So
the
like,
start of the actual human existence.
yeah. So like, I think well, I don't really think like what you're saying that's true. I mean, what would be your like what would be the proof for like saying it would take so many years to find out if there is an ultimate cause? Like I think even like in Aristotle's time, like they had crazy metaphysics, right? So I don't think from then on we've had so many years, thousands of years. I don't think in those thousands of years humans have just been like sitting around and doing nothing, right? I think even prior to that there were religions, right? So I don't think it would take like 10,000 years or whatever for humans to find out if there's an ultimate cause or not. I think even if you just observe nature, we can obviously deduct that there has been a cause to this. It's just a question of is there an ultimate cause? And I don't, from our discussion, I haven't really seen like a good argument to say there isn't.
Well, nobody can say there is or isn't an ultimate cause, because that would just be obsolete. That'd be an invalid argument.
Why would that
There
be
has to
invalid?
be a cause for something. There always has to be a cause for something.
Yeah, I think that it's necessary for there. It's necessary for there to be a cause for us because we are in contingent order. It's not necessary for there to be a cause for God because He does not exist qua contingent being. That's like the point I'm trying to make. Because like to say to apply the standard we have to a being that does not exist contingently, I don't think that really follows.
Mm, well, it's like I said, it's an hard topic to discuss.
Yeah.
You, you don't really know. Nobody's gonna know what's the actual cause. Like I said, um, the religion. There is a lot of theory to like I said, the creation of God, the and how he came to be the cause of everything. Like I said with like the Big Bang, there's theories on how that could be the cause of everything. There is no correct cause because there is not enough evidence to prove both causes. I know
I
it
think
might
we
say
can.
like in I know it might say in texts and verses like everything was created by God, everything was created through Jesus, but there's it's we cannot actually state properly nor evidently if this is correct. If we could, we would have done it a long time ago. Like you mentioned with the Aristotles, and like you mentioned, the Greeks as well. The Greeks were amazing when it came to uh, mathematics.
Yeah.
That includes the scientifics as well. Um, like if you're if we were to find a cause, I'm pretty sure we would have found that cause like thousands of years ago. It would be the cause would be taught in modern scientific textbook. So there is no realistic ultimate cause. If if God was if God was actually the cause, and we did personally learn that, that would then be in scientific textbook. That would be taught worldwide, all over, that God was the one who caused the Big Bang and creation. In scientific textbook, the only thing that's known is the Big Bang. Nothing about God, how he created everything. If it was God that created everything, we would have instant knowledge of it. Of
Well, I
course,
think like
go on.
so. I was just gonna say like, firstly, what you said at the beginning. I think we can make logical deductions. Like, for example, if I'm asleep and like I have a security camera and it doesn't detect anything, but I hear like some noise at the window, I think it's more logical to deduct that it's probably just the wind. It's not some guy climbing up. It's possible, but it's not some guy climbing up the window banging on my door, right? So I think in certain situations, there's things we may not truly know, but there's things we can make, logical assumptions, like, you know what I mean? And secondly, I
Yeah.
think to say if God was the ultimate cause, humans would know about it. Well, humans have known about it. They've been writing about it for thousands of years. Church fathers, the Bible. So I think like humans have known about it, and just because it isn't in modern science, I think appealing to modern science as an authority, I think it doesn't really work because like just just to say, well, it would be in modern science books. I mean, but why are modern science books true? Humans are ignorant, right? So I think that doesn't really follow. That would necessarily have to be in modern science books. I don't think that'd follow.
I personally, I think it would follow, because there is no there will never be an authority. Like God may be like an authoritative figure in belief, but there is realistic um no realistic or scientific proof that he is of an authority. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to throw religion out the window. I'm not trying to say God isn't an authoritative figure, but there must be a known cause for there to for for there to be not for us to have the knowledge about, like the Big Bang. Something's caused that. We don't know. There is, like I said, there is the Big Bang theory, where there is the huge buildup of gases which eventually expanded out into open space and created everything, including the microorganisms, um, the plants, the planets, and everything else. But say if we were to say that a being had caused that,
Yeah.
we need to also know what create. We would also have to figure out what created that being, because any type of being, whether it be human being or an animal being, has come from something. It cannot come from nothing. Nothing comes from nothing. Obviously,
So
if I hold out my hand and I go put a plant here, nothing's going to come out of my hand. If I was to go, if I was to be in space and I was to go make more stars, and nothing happened, nothing's going to happen.
yeah.
Nothing. It's like if you're on a paper, if you're on a piece of paper and you're writing a text, or you're doing a drawing. You will not just pick up a pencil and just tap it and then boom, there's a drawing. You have to physically create that drawing, which leads
Yeah.
to the question of, if God was that drawing, who drew who drew that picture? Who
So
wrote about him? Who wrote what he's going to do? Who wrote his story?
yeah. So I mean, two things. Like earlier, you said, I think like you're appealing to modern science, right? So my question would be, why should I trust modern science, which says absurd things? For example, that they use carbon dating to figure out this one penguin was 1 million years old, or something absurd like that. So why should I trust modern science over, thousands of years of consistent theologians and philosophers on the existence of God, right? So, for my first question would be, addressing what you said earlier, why should I trust modern science who claims absurd things over them, right? I feel like that's, not really appropriate to do. Secondly,
Um,
sorry, yeah, let me just get this across. So, secondly, you were talking about, if God was that drawing, who caused the drawing? Once again, this doesn't logically follow, because that drawing is subject to change, right? That drawing is not pure act. It's not perfect. It has potential, right? So I think, to compare that to the being who is not contingent, not subject to time, who is pure act, who does not have potential, I don't think that is a fair analogy, right? So once again, I would say it is not necessary for something to cause God, because God is pure act. God is not contingent.
So I'll go to your first question. I'll go to your first question, which, can
Yeah.
you repeat it?
Yeah, so my question would be, why should I trust modern science, which claims absurd things, like, for example, a penguin being dated to be 1 million years old, which we obviously know is not true, over thousands of years of consistent theologians and philosophers who give metaphysical arguments for the necessity of God?
Well, if we're talking about like the carbon dating, which is modern technology and is how we can figure out how old something is. We talk like carbon dating things like um, something that's like 2,000 years old. There's a lot of history is still buried under the ground. Like in Italy, if you were to look around somewhere, you would still be able to find the remains of the city of Pompeii before Mount Vesuvius had erupted, and after. You would be able to go around and find ancient um, civilizations. Like if you go to Egypt, the Egyptian civilizations, there is always something that is so old underneath. Um, I know that one's a bit. I know that's off topic and it doesn't really appeal to God's existence, uh, but that's just an example. Um, if like when it comes to actually dating things, it does take a lot of work. There is always there is always more than one person doing the work, doing the carbon dating. There is always someone that has to confirm it. If it like carbon dating processes could be wrong. Like I could pick up a fossil, look at it and go, yeah, that's probably 2,000 years old. And then if I carbon date it, that could say it was 5,000 years old or 10,000 years old. I know there is actually some evidence of Jesus's existence. We have found Archaeologists have found his footwear and his robe, and I do believe the fawn crown that he wore during his crucifixion. They have been found carbon dated, and they have been confirmed to have been worn by Jesus. This isn't. It is a huge, difficult process, but it also includes like taking DNA on the clothes. This can be like sweat or any blood, dried up blood. This could be anything. There is always DNA to prove who a person is and what objects belonged to that person. It's not always going to be accurate first time. Science is never accurate first time. If you want to talk like, say, creation with the, I know this is going to the Big Bang and it is getting annoyingly repetitive now, but there is no way we can confirm what caused the Big Bang because, like we said, it's theories. But there is some, not a lot, not enough, but there is some evidence that can suggest, not prove, but suggest that the Big Bang was caused naturally by an expansion of gas. There is, but there is no evidence from NASA, when I can speak, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, for there to have been for there to be a celestial being who is not within our order and is able to actually create something like this. It's a bit so like I said, it's a massive grey area when it comes to the Big Bang, but when it comes to modern science like carbon dating, laboratory experiments, even finding vaccines as well, it's not always going to be correct. Nothing will always be correct the first time. it takes a lot of time to figure out the equation for many things. It took us a good load of years to figure out, like, what was it? Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah.
Took us a long time to figure out, well, a lot of scientific and numerical equations. It's not something that comes easily, not something that comes straight away either. If we could get an answer straight away, then maybe it may prove God was the ultimate being that caused the Big Bang. But we need to continue collecting plenty of evidence because we cannot fully prove, and like God as well. God we cannot prove because there is no remnants left of there is no remnants to prove he created the Big Bang. Like if you were to create something, like if you were to build something like a house, you would obviously use the tools, use the materials you have at hand. But there would always be a piece of DNA, your fingerprints, that rested on there, so it could tell. So that will tell us who built this house, or who helped build this house. There is nothing that we can prove at the moment that could say God was the ultimate cause of everything.
Yeah, I mean,
Science is a slow process.
I think there are metaphysical arguments that, make it necessary for God to be the ultimate cause of all things. But like to address what you said, I mean, firstly, I still don't think I don't think this gives, a justification of why I should trust modern science, which, as you said, it errors in a lot of areas. So I don't think this gives a justification for why I should trust modern science, which falls into error in a lot of areas, over thousands of years of consistent theologians, right? I don't think that gives a justification. But my question for you would be, how do you know when science gets something wrong, and how do you know when science gets something right? How do you pick and choose? If I think for you it would lead to science being your foundational knowledge. But if science is, it can fall into error, how do you really know when it falls into error? Like, how do you know when it's right or wrong?
There's always more than one test. We cannot just do one test and determine whether that's right or wrong. There has to be multiple. Like if I was to test, um, if I was to test the speed of sound, um, we know that the speed of sound is over 600 miles per hour, over 300 meters a second. We cannot test that without running a number of experiments. Like um, if we created a sound in one space and we were stood we were stood like maybe 10 meters, how long is that sound going to take to get there? How long is it going to take to get to me if how long is the sound going to take to get to me if I'm 20 meters away? This it's not it, this is obviously not very accurate because we can do as many tests as we want and we can time it as many times as we want, but we will always get a different time if we run that experiment again, say
So are
with the
you
same distances. But
so just to clarify, are you saying you can never truly know the correct answer to something if
mm,
everything's not gonna be accurate? Like, how far do you draw the line? Like, where do you put the line to I know this for sure, or I can make a logical assumption about this?
uh, that is a difficult one when it comes to anything scientific. There is obviously scientific times science has been correct with like vaccines, medicines. That all of that is a science that has been physically proven to work. They are sciences that have been correct. When it comes to the scientific theories, they're the ones that are more you're unable to actually get an accurate reading. Like I said with carbon dating, it takes a long time. Like I said with the speed of sound, it's never going to be accurate because you might hear it and then click button. You might not hear it, and you might only just click the stopwatch before the sound can even get to you. You may press the stop button on the stopwatch 2 seconds after it's gone past, after you've heard the sound. There is no real ways to really accurately pinpoint the exact time of the speed of sound. The exact the exact creation of the solar system. There's never going to be a complete accurate science. There will be correct sciences like mathematics, medicines, biology, physics, but there will. But I mean, physics lies in a grey area, so push physics away. But biology and chemistry will always be correct because these have been proven methods. These have been tested on actual beings. It's more of the physics that burns into the grey area of theories, like Albert Einstein's black hole theory. Like I said, and I know it's getting annoying every time I say this, but the
Yeah.
Big Bang, um, the how things move, kinetic energy, magnetic energy, magnetic fields, gravity itself. These are all physical theories of physics. The only sciences that can be truly correct are biology, which is obviously the study of living organisms, like our cells, like plants, like other animals and other microorganisms. Chemistry is can be and will be correct as well because these are tested on other animals. The chemicals and drugs, like I said, medicines, vaccines, even the stuff that could kill a person. All of these have been tested, so we know what exactly that thing is going to do. In chemistry, nothing's going to leave until it's tested. In biology, we have to physically get hands on and dissect like an animal or a plant or another organism just to actually be able to study the body. So sciences can be correct but also incorrect. It's the whole topic's a grey area.
Yeah, I
And
think like at the end of the day, it leads to going back to the Big Bang. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get across. Like, as you said, I mean, the only way we would like know if something works or not, it would have to be tested, right? We don't have any tests for the Big Bang, so I don't think I think this you already said this, but like you don't really know if the Big Bang is true or not. It's just a theory you hold to, right? I think the reason you hold to it is because you believe it's more coherent, right? But I think I would argue it's not more coherent. I would argue the ultimate cause being God is more coherent because we have so many metaphysical arguments for the existence of God. I mean, like, I can give you some if you want. But I think at the end of the day, we just have to, like, look at both. We look at, what is more logical. I'm looking at the metaphysical point of view, and I'm seeing, all these arguments for the existence of God. So I'm making the, decision that the the existence of God, him being the ultimate cause, is going to be more logical than the Big Bang, because the Big Bang, it gives no justification, it gives no explanation. You're just gonna say like, at the end of the day, you can give, like, you can't really give any explanation for it. It just happened, and then it just caused God, which I would argue, in your point of view, I think it causes some, like, semi-God. He's not truly God because he's not pure act. He's like, he's a creator of us, but he had a creator. So I think that's, not really uh logically coherent. I think the existence of God being the ultimate cause is more coherent. I mean, I can give you some, like, arguments why, if you want.
Um, before you do, I've just had a quick Google search.
Yeah.
There is pictures taken from NASA to potentially prove the Big Bang did happen. I have just I did just take that moment. Don't worry, I was still
Yeah.
listening, but I
Yeah.
did
Okay.
take that moment to just quickly have a look. Um,
But also, just to point out, as theists, we can accept the Big Bang. Like, the theory was made by a theist, so, like, the Big Bang existing, I have no problem saying it happened. But I'm just saying it's not the ultimate cause, right? I can concede it happened. I can say it didn't happen. I don't really think it matters. I think, like, the thing that does matter is there an ultimate cause. Like, I know many Christians who believe in the Big Bang. They just believe God was the cause of it, right?
yeah.
And I think your counter to that would be, well, who caused God? But then that question presupposes God needs a cause, right? So I don't think there's any argument against God being the ultimate cause, and I think there are arguments for God being the ultimate cause.
Like I said, there's no exact correct area in that because we cannot physically prove. There is no ability to prove that there was a celestial being that could have not created but caused a Big Bang. Um, there are ways we can suggest it, like obviously, religion is a belief system. It does come off of many things, like God and His creations, as well as Jesus and His sacrifice, um, and a lot of many other things. But we but beliefs are what are the cause of theories. Like scientifics a is an ideology. So it is an ideological belief,
But,
just
like,
like
don't you think we can make, like, we can look at, like, two cases. We can make a logical, like, we can deduct what is true or not. Like, let's say, for example, I'm sleeping at night. Someone breaks in. Someone says they saw a unicorn who had rainbow hair, who had two legs, three arms. They broke in, and they stole my stuff. Someone says they saw 5'10" male. He had a black hoodie on, white shorts or whatever, and he said he saw him break in and take my stuff. Out of these two witnesses, we can obviously deduct it was the man. Like, this is not going to be a unicorn who breaks in, who has three arms, two legs, and steals my stuff, right? That's just not going to be logical. Do we have
no.
any proof against it? No, we don't. But we can obviously deduct that that's not going to be the case, right? So I think, like, the point here is we have these two cases. I think it's more logical to believe God is the ultimate cause. He could have caused a Big Bang. We don't truly know. I think it's more logical to believe that than to say the Big Bang caused a demigod who then created us, right? I think is more logical. Because at the end of the day, also again, we have metaphysical necessity for God to be the cause, right?
Mm.
The Big Bang is, there's no necessity for it. It's a theory, right?
I mean, all belief systems are realistically, if you want to put it in a proper perspective, theory. Some may have more proof than others. Like I said, religion may actually have more proof than scientifics, but we there's no real way of telling which one's got more proof.
Well, I mean, I would say otherwise. Like, I would say, once again, there's no, like, necessity for the Big Bang. In metaphysics, there is a necessity for God. So there is areas that God has to be, right? With the Big Bang, I don't see an area where the Big Bang has to be, right? Or
Mm.
more specifically, has to be the ultimate cause.
I mean, like we did say, the Big Bang is a theory, and you could
Yeah,
be right, but until there is a time where we can properly prove this, and I don't just mean like through belief systems saying that God caused the Big Bang. If we can actually prove what caused the Big Bang, then I think wouldn't it be a massive breakthrough in both sides really? If there was an ultimate cause, like you said, God created the Big Bang, then there would actually be less ignorance. But if people are saying that um, the gases in space that built up and expanded caused the Big Bang, there's going to be, well, probably the same amount of religious followers as is now. If you, I'm not trying to sound mean, but you know where I'm getting at.
yeah, yeah,
Um, if if we eventually could physically prove this, then maybe you could be right. Maybe you could be wrong. I'm not saying that you are, but maybe you could be. And we need I think what we lack at the moment with the whole Big Bang theory of who caused the Big Bang or what caused the Big Bang. It's it's a massive grey area. There's no real proof. If we had proof, then it could change a lot in perspective of maybe religion. If the religions are correct and God did create it, then so be it. I will, I would probably fully turn Christian if there was proof. But with the lack of proof both sides have, I cannot really take the side. Earlier, I did mention I was pagan, but
yeah.
pagans, we do also believe that something has to have happened for there to be a creation. So
Yeah, I mean, and you just
so like,
hold to the position of that being the Big Bang, right? Like, that's
yeah,
obvious.
but
But
we believe our gods came from the Big Bang. Like I'm Nordic pagan, so I'm going to give a few examples of our gods. So we've got like Odin, the All Father. We've got Thor, the son of Odin, and the god of thunder. We've got Loki, son of Odin, and the god of mischief. There's many others, but we all believe that they have to have been created. Like I said, nothing can come from nothing. Something has to come from something.
so then that logically follows there has to be an ultimate cause, and that ultimate cause can't be like inside of time, because otherwise, if it's inside of time, it's subject to change. The Big Bang would have happened inside of time, right? So the Big Bang then would have had, like, it would have been subject to change. It obviously changed it was not it had potentiality, so it can't really be the first cause. Because if it has potentiality, it would have like needed a cause.
Mm, I mean, as I have said, it is a massive grey area. There is no real way of proving what actually happened, what actually caused it. But
But then do you think like then if the only explanation would be like, well, there's no really telling, like, do you think it's still appropriate like to hold to a logical position? Like, because I think the holding to the Big Bang being the ultimate cause is not logical, right? So do you think it would still be like sensible to do that? Or would it be like more sensible to look at all the explanations and we see, okay, God's the ultimate cause. This is the one that we can deduct that makes more sense than the Big Bang. So therefore I should hold to it. Because as I said earlier, I gave the analogy. Like, is we can make deductions on what is logical. If we can prove like let's say we have X and Y, X the Big Bang, Y God. If we can prove X to be not capable of being the ultimate cause, but and then we can logically deduct that Y would be the only logical explanation unless you can, provide a reason for it to be illogical. That's what I'm trying to get across.
well, there's a lot of logic and illogic in, well, not just my sayings, but yours as well. Because, like I said, nothing can come from nothing. There is something that has to have come from something. They do not have to be like um, they do not have to be in our order, but there has to be something that comes from something. That that being that being nature, that being the nature of everything. How did the trees grow? Because at one point our Earth was a volcanic wasteland way before life even existed. Our Earth was a volcanic wasteland. But then what created the plants, the grass, the animals? What created the Cambrian explosion? What created the clouds that eventually covered our planet in water? What's the reason that our planet is practically classed as a water planet? What's the
And
reason for that?
that's the thing. Like the Big Bang gives no explanation and it gives no justification for anything. And like applying your own standard that something has to come from something, we are only observing that in the contingent order, right? We can't like speak on a being that is not subject to time because we can't measure that being. So like if we can measure the Big Bang though, because that happened inside of time and that was subject to change, that caused change, right? So
Hmm.
that's my point. Like the Big Bang, it's not like some higher being that is not in our order. That like we can measure the Big Bang, we can't like measure God in the same sense. So we can't say God requires a cause if he is not in our order, right?
I wouldn't say that the Big Bang was in time, because if we look at the time and space, if we look at the theory of time, of the time and relative in space, or the time and relative dimensions in space, a lot of it would have been brought through the Big Bang, which means that would have happened before time.
Was the Big Bang was that subject to change?
Uh, that we do not know,
Well, how would you not know?
because,
Because
well,
if it
if
was subject to change, that means it's not fixed or absolute or it's dependent on conditions. The Big Bang, it could have been altered, it could have been replaced. It was not necessary. It was not absolute, nor was it fixed. So therefore, we would say like it was subject to change.
Yeah.
So therefore, what is time? Time is the measurement of change by definition. So if we can measure, if it is the measurement of change, it was subject to time. That logically follows, right? God does not fit this definition because he is absolute. He is pure act, meaning he has no potential, only actuality. So we would so that would be my point, right? So the Big Bang is, subject to change, so therefore it's not necessary. So then we would say it can be measured by time. Well, it can be measured by us.
I I um I will say that yes, the Big Bang was subject to change, because as we did mention, it wasn't the Big Bang until those gases expanded.
Right. So therefore it's
So
not
there is an
necessary, right?
obvious change. Sorry, what did you say?
So therefore it's not necessary, right?
Uh, mm, it's not. I wouldn't say that it's not necessary. It is subject to change because, like I said, it is the gases that expanded and caused the interstellar explosion that we know as the Big Bang. It is not. It's not absolute.
Well, I mean, I would say it is not necessary because it's a contingent occurrence, right? Necessary
Yeah.
would mean like it cannot be that which cannot be. So like we would say it's necessary for 2 plus 2 to be 4. It cannot be otherwise, right? So God is necessary. The Big Bang isn't. So what would be more logical to believe is the ultimate cause? A necessary being or a non-necessary contingent occurrence?
Well, at the same time, what's actually. Sorry, just when I can speak.
No problem.
Well, if we look at the necessaries, if we looked at God as as a necessary, we know that He is absolute, that God is not a subject to change, as you did
Yes.
mention. Um, but like I said, nothing can come from nothing.
But
Not
how
even
are you
not no
observing?
beings. No beings can come from nothing. Something has to be there to create something else.
Well,
Like,
just quickly, how are you defining being here? Like, what are you talking about? God?
yeah, like the celestial
So, like,
being.
what would be your justification for believing that? Like, why can't God be eternal? Like, because you're applying like this, like what we observe in the contingent world. You're applying that standard to God that doesn't necessarily follow, because he is pure act, meaning he has no potential. He has no passive potency. He is perfect, right? So if he has no potential and he is perfect and he has no passive potency, that would mean it's not necessary for there to be a cause, right? So like that's what I'm trying to say. So like, what would be your justification for saying there has to be a cause for God?
Well, saying that God is perfect wouldn't really be a valid argument because there's nothing's ever going to be perfect. If like no being celestial or otherwise is perfect, you
So
cannot
like,
have a perfect being. There is always going to be a contradiction with that being. Like religious texts, they have plenty of contradictions, and they do follow God. There's a lot of contradiction in Christianity's religion, in the
I
religion of
would disagree.
Christianity. Sorry, but if we want to look at the contradiction of God Himself, He cannot realistically be perfect.
But
If we
why?
want to put in a logical perspective, nothing's ever perfect. A being of any sort, celestial or otherwise, can never be perfect. If something was to be perfect, it would mean it was a top. It would mean it's like top standard.
Wait, so how are you defining perfect here? Just to make sure you don't like, how are you defining perfect? Like, because like it's kind of ambiguous. Like, there's
Well,
multiple ways to define, but like, can you qualify?
well, it also depends on how you describe God as perfect.
Right. So like the definition of perfect I'm like using here, like, one, to be without error, two, to have complete actuality, three, to have no potentiality, and four, to have, like, infinite goodness, knowledge, power, existence, etc. So like that's the definition I'm even using here. So like if God was not perfect, he would have potency. So like that potency is the potential to become better or more complete. But like potency implies change, and change implies imperfection. So like we would say God is perfect because he has no potency.
There is a lot of. I wouldn't. In fact, to be honest, I wouldn't say God needs to change, but in the other terms, he he cannot be the perfect ultimate being.
But why?
If if we want to look at texts, there is a lot of mistakes that have been created.
But
Um,
is
like I
that like
mentioned,
is that the error of God, or is that scribal errors?
being the error of God.
So like where does like God error then? That would be my question.
God God's error would be the creation of lethal disaster. God wanted his planet to be perfect. He wanted his planet Earth to be to his visual standard. He wanted he wanted as many people as possible, as many animals as possible to be able to live together in harmony. Hence the first creation of Adam and Eve. Um, but if we look at like Noah's Ark, why did he flood the earth, putting his own creations at risk? Why did he why did he attack a planet of animals with an asteroid, that those animals being of his creation, the dinosaurs? Why did why would he eradicate the dinosaurs and not develop humans around them, and that the dinosaurs die off themselves?
Right. So like a couple things, like imperfection in effects does not mean like the creator's flawed, right? So like for example, saying we have a painter, right? If he paints like a perfect image, like would that, and like later like someone vandalizes the image, does that mean like the artist's perfect image, would that mean he is not perfect just because someone else comes and ruins it? I don't think that would I don't think that would like negate the artist being perfect, right? I think that would be the error of the one who vandalized. And like about
Well,
the Noah's Ark, so I would say like some people don't hold to a global flood. Like even if I did grant like it was a global flood, I don't think that proves God is not perfect. Like I don't see how that follows, because like you would be presupposing like it would be immoral to uh unalive everyone. like in the flood. Like you would have to give a justification of why that would not be moral. Because like you get what I mean?
Well, there's a lot of immoralities that run through the flooding of the earth, which does run in the story of Noah's Ark. Um, when he when he told Noah he had to build an ark because there was going to be a great flood, and he had to get all the animals on the ark. But if 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 God knew, if God was the artist, God knew someone was gonna come and try to destroy his art, as you mentioned with the artist and the vandal. The artist being God and the
Yeah.
vandal being another celestial being. If
Oh no, the
if
Vandals like the humans who grab. Oh no, you're talking about Satan.
yeah,
My bad. Yeah.
if the other celestial being was to be the vandal, and God being the artist knew that someone's going to try and vandalize their art, why would God not stop? Why would God not stop that vandal?
Yeah. So I
There,
was sorry, Karen.
there may be like a few. There may be like a small little mishap where um there's still some spills on the artwork where where if we put it back into the story of Noah's Ark, well, there may be little rain, but if you are to let someone vandalize your work without stopping them, it falls to your own negligence. It falls to your own neglect of your artwork.
Yeah, so like just before we continue, I do, once again, because this is the main topic, the Big Bang, and what is the ultimate cause. I do just want to clarify. We have agreed to go on to see if God being the ultimate cause is illogical, right? Just to clarify, because I really don't want to get away from that point. So like we can carry on, but I just want to clarify. We have agreed on that's where we're going. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so the reason that happened in the first place, that would be because if God was truly all loving, he would not take away the free will of another quote unquote celestial being, because that would not be all loving. Like if I took let's say some person, right? I forced them to do such and such. I said you have no choice if you want to obey me, disobey me. That wouldn't be truly all loving, because that would be forcing your will upon someone, right? Like in marriages, a loving marriage, it would not be like a abusive relationship. It wouldn't be like you're gonna be forced to be with me and you can't disobey me, you can't leave me. That would not truly be all loving. So I think that would be the reason why.
But in fact, coming on to the topic of free will, I will come back to the Big Bang and the Noah's Ark
Yeah.
topic. But coming on to the topic of free will, I want to compare the religious, not the religious text, but the story of Lucifer, the one who rebelled against God.
Okay.
He 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 chose out of his own free will to to question. He he should have, if God was all loving, God would have been able to, or been willing to, answer those questions. Lucifer would not have rebelled if his questions were answered. If Lucifer didn't rebel in the first place, no, with knowing his, well, his quite deceptive state, he, yeah, I'd probably rebel too. if there's something questionable, you should be able to question it. But that questioning led eventually to Lucifer's rebellion. And that's how Lucifer was sent to hell. Am I correct in that?
I would disagree. I would say Lucifer didn't fall because he had questions. It was due to pride, right? You know, it's one thing to say, Lord, help me understand so I may obey better. It's a different thing to say, why should I listen to you at all, right? So his question was not like he didn't come in humility. He came in pride, right? So the fall wasn't because God refused to answer him. I would like to see where you see that in scripture. Like, you get what I mean?
I don't see it in scripture.
So like, are you kind of
Obviously,
like presupposing that's the case?
no, no, no. Um, I don't mean like obviously I don't mean like questions like God to help me understand. I mean like questioning like his authority. I if I was a person beside God, I would possibly question his authority too because I want to properly understand his authority. It's not saying Lucifer was like that. Lucifer is defined as a snake, and because snakes are quite deceptive creatures. It's
Right.
more of the. It's more of what like stuff they've done. Like I mentioned the Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Um, what? Why did he do that? Why would he? Why would he put his own creation at risk of being destroyed? The dinosaurs as well. Why would he risk the destruction of his own creation?
I mean, I
Which
think
the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs, it killed them. It killed all of them off. It was mass extinction.
yeah, but like
He's
your original objection was to like there being like contradictions in the Bible. Like two of the things you mentioned, they're not even found in scripture. Like you were saying about like Lucifer asking questions. Like as I said, it's different to like question an authority, and it's different to like completely rebel against authority. Like saying I have a father, right? I can, as a child, I can like let's say for example, like I don't know, I just turned 18. I can question his authority, but it's different for me to just like question him, and it's different to like completely rebel, go against him, like say no, I'm higher than you, get out of here. You know, it's a different thing. So like I think your original objection was on there being found error in scripture, but like two of these things you mentioned, they're not like in scripture at all. So I don't see like in a respectful way, I don't see the relevance of them.
well, question. Well, to the term of rebellion, it's not to act as a higher power. The term of rebellion, if we want to look at Lucifer's perspective, is to go against a certain law which has been put into place to ensure stability and all of the stuff which God has placed laws for
Wait,
stability.
where are you getting this definition from?
This is my own personal understanding. This is
Yeah, but I
not
think like
exact textbook definition.
well like let's get the textbook definition, because if we're gonna like use personal like definitions, I don't think it's gonna get confusing, right? So how rebellion's defined in the Oxford Dictionary is defined as an act of armed resistance to an established government or leader. So I think like just questioning a leader is not necessarily rebellion. What Lucifer did was rebellion because it was an act of armed resistance to a leader, right? So I think that is rebellion. Just questioning is not going to be rebellion. It's not going to fit this definition, right?
Mm. But aside from the questioning bit, because obviously I did make a mistake, and I do
That's
see
fine.
that I made a mistake in my definition. But you,
Yeah.
but if a let's talk about let's talk like tyrants for a second. If I am to create an armed resistance against a tyrant, I would be rebelling, because that tyrant has done something bad. If we're putting it in Lucifer's perspective of God being the tyrant and Lucifer being the um, rebel, I'm not saying God is a tyrant, but just for a hypothetical perspective, um, there is a lot of morals when it comes to a rebellion against a tyrant. It means you are demolishing someone of their title for as for they have gone against their vows and they have destroyed their um and they have destroyed a community. It can be because they have they have personally locked people away for stuff they haven't done. It could be anything.
But where do
We
you
don't
where?
know
Sorry,
we
carry on.
don't know the actual reason Lucifer rebelled. Well, I don't know, but there must have been a reason. There is always a reason for a rebellion.
Yeah, the reason was he wanted to be like the Most High. It says that in Isaiah 14, I believe. So like I don't think there's any, evidence to say Lucifer saw God as a quote unquote tyrant, right? I don't think that's found anywhere, unless
Oh
I'm
no, no, no,
mistaken.
no. No,
Yeah,
there's
so I
no
think like
evidence.
I don't think his fall was through ignorance, it was through rebellion, right? So I think, at the end of the
Mm,
day, that's what it is. I don't think he thought God was a tyrant, because I don't think he would be calling tyrant the quote unquote most high in Isaiah, right?
no, of
So I
course.
think like
And
yeah, so I think like his rebellion was due to pride. It wasn't because like he was questioning sincerely. So I think like that's the reason of the rebellion.
well, any rebellion's got is going to have a form of pride. Like I said, whether it's rebelling from tyrants or rebelling against someone else. Um, I find it hard to believe that it's because someone wanted a higher power. I find that extremely hard to believe. That
Why? I think people rebel all the time to get higher power. Like in foot, you see it. For example, in football, players rebel all the time because they want to be a captain. For example, you know.
no,
So I
no,
think like there is no. You don't think like there's any. It's like it's not common, or it's not
no.
possible for someone to rebel because they want a higher power.
It's it is it's possible, but it's not common. And
But I don't
I
think this
can I
case is like
cannot
a common case at all. So I don't think like applying the common reason of rebellion to this case, I don't think that would be, fair. I don't think that'd be treating you fairly.
it might not be fair, but it's more of like a realistic standpoint. If you were to rebel against God for a higher power, it wouldn't be realistic. You can like a person can rebel against God's word and say like they can call him a tyrant. Not saying he is, but they can go and call him that, and that will end up in their downfall when death do them part. But Lucifer's downfall's a bit more grey area. He cannot.
I mean,
I doubt it's because he wanted leadership. I
well,
extremely doubt that.
firstly, I mean, it's what the Bible says, right? Like that's the only like trustworthy like source of information here. So I think like denying that would just be saying it'd just be like throwing out evidence, right? Secondly, I don't think it would be due to ignorance, like because Lucifer, he was one of the highest of angels, right? He was like in full light of the divine glory. It's like he would have known his own being was created. He would have known God is infinite and good. So like I don't think it's logical to say like Satan fell through ignorance.
Lucifer
Like
is not Satan.
sorry, I misspoke. Lucifer.
No, it's
You get what I mean?
yeah. I know there's a common misconception about
Yeah.
that as well. Um, but I don't find it realistic for, especially with Lucifer being in that power, for him to rebel like that. If he was in that power and he was to rebel, I would expect it to have a reason, not because he wants power, but because God was acting immoral. A person in a higher power would not dare to rebel unless the leader, whether it be king, queen, god, prime minister, president, they have to have done something extremely immoral.
I mean,
Like,
I think we see it all the time. Like I think we see like people getting to a high point. I mean I couldn't give an example because like I've seen it in movies. Probably I've seen cases in real life. People get to a high point, and at that point, pride just fills them because they get closer. I mean, they are like right in front of the king, for example, right? So I think like it happens all the time. Like not through ignorance, but through pride. Pride fills them. They want to be on par, so that leads to the rebellion. Like,
um,
I'm not sure of the exact names, but there was like I've learned about this in history. There was like a case of the king fell ill, he passed. There was two brothers. One brother was the heir to the throne. I think this was like I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I remember learning about this. Like one brother was the heir to the throne, the other one wasn't. The other brother rightfully, became king, but the other brother, he wasn't ignorant. Like he knew it was fully his. He knew he deserved it. He knew, there's nothing wrong with it. But out of pride and out of anger, he wanted to be on that level. So out of pride, he went for him, and there was a massive fight. So I think like it does happen. Like it is possible, and I would even say like it's a common reason for rebellion.
well, I want, if we bring into the real life aspect, we have like protests. They're a form of rebellion. We also have the Civil War, the U.S. Civil War, which was an act of rebellion. We have the U.S. Revolution, which was an act of rebellion against Great Britain because we taxed the U.S. too much. There's recent, like I said, there's recent LA protests. Um, and at the current moment, the UK is facing is expected to face major protests
Yeah.
because we've banned Palestinian action under the Counter-Terrorism Act of 2008, which is grounds for rebellion. But the only ever place I've seen that has people who rebel against their own leaders for power would be Russia. That would be the
Right.
only
So like
example I could give.
we we do observe like it does happen. Like whether it's common or not, it does happen. So I think like just because even if I did grant like maybe seeing corruption would lead to rebellion, even if I did grant it's more of a common case, I don't think like it disproves Satan rebelling due to pride, right?
Again, Lucifer.
Yeah, sorry, I keep messing up the words. You
um,
know what I mean. It doesn't
yeah,
like
Lucifer being
negate
the sin of pride
Lucifer's.
and Satan being the sin of wrath.
Yeah, sure. Like But you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't negate that sort
Yeah.
possibility. And if the only like trustworthy source, like the only source of information we have of this, if that tells us that this is a reason, I think it's reasonable to trust the source, right? And I think if we look at other aspects, that Lucifer was one of the highest angels. He was in full knowledge. He was in the, you know, he knew that God was good. So I don't think like it's probable to say it was due to ignorance.
I would I wouldn't say it's ignorance. If it was ignorance, that would that would actually be a reasonable cause to send him, to make him fall down to hell. But if we want to put it into a realistic perspective, there will be, like, if you've I don't know if you've seen the movie Macbeth. It's about a sort of, I think it's about a knight who wanted to become king, and he killed the king because he wanted power. That's that's a movie perspective. If we were to talk about Lucifer's perspective, I can find it harder than Macbeth, because Macbeth is a movie. Macbeth isn't real.
Yeah, I mean,
If if we were to bring it into Lucifer's real perspective, I would find it extremely hard to believe his real perspective was power, because there's always going to be pride in rebellion. If you rebel, you have to be proud to rebel. Like I said, the LA protests recently, um, the pro-Palestinian protests, the Civil War, the revolution. There has to be a pride to rebel
wait,
anyway.
how are you defining like pride here? Because I once again I think like this might just be a case of like semantics, like because I it seems like we don't have the same definite like how are you defining uh, pride?
Uh, Pride is in, like, the feeling of pride. You would have to feel pride. You'd
You
have
were
to
like
feel proud to do something.
I don't think like pride would necessarily mean proud. I mean that's not how I'm defining it. I'm the way I'm defining like prideful here, it would be like the deliberate acts of the will in which a rational being, right? I mean, like the early theologians, they define it like the inordinate love of self. You know, where the creatures desire to be like God, not by grace, but by uh, their own power. So, like that's the way the theologians define it. Like Augustine, for example.
So like in your definition, it's like loving only yourself.
Yeah, I would say to a certain degree, yeah. Like,
Yeah. Well, having that kind of pride, it's good. It is good for anyone, because well,
mm,
it's a person's mental health. But so a person would want to love themselves. They may love God more than themselves, but everyone has to have pride.
yeah, to clarify, I think like I would say like the irrational love in the irrational inordinate love of self. So that like that's I would say that's a proper definition. So like that's why we would apply it to Lucifer because he desired to be like God, not by grace but by his own power. Right. So I think like that's a proper definition being used. I mean, I don't know if you disagree, but that's the way like the early like church fathers, the early theologians, that's the way they defined it.
But then define irrational, because there's many different ways in which someone could be irrational.
I mean, I would say like acting. I would say like in this context, I would say it means acting against like reason or truth.
Mm.
So that's why we would apply that to say, not saying Lucifer. So we would say like he wasn't ignorant, but he was like acting in the way of pride, right? As defined by Augustine.
But we could also say that if uh, let's take Donald Trump for example, he could say that about people protesting against him. He could say that's irrational, but because, like I said, protest is classed as a form of rebellion. People are protesting against him. He will consider it irrational, not because of obviously because we know he's putting the U.S. in a state of dictatorship at the moment, but because he wants to feel in power, and he is in power, with him being obviously the president of the United
I
States.
don't think that follows because like he's corrupt, right? And also like this definition is like, I think like it doesn't only apply to Lucifer. Like this would be like this would apply to like humans as well. There'd be the irrational, act of rebellion, you know,
I mean, yeah,
against
but
God.
like I said, any world leader could claim someone as an irrational rebel.
So like is this now like going to the argument that we can't really trust like the Bible when it says that, or is that where you're trying to
If
argue? Because
uh, I will argue that because there is a lot of irrational text in the Bible as well, m- like m- like there was the one about homosexuality. Um, if you just give me a second.
it's so late, man. So just to let you know, like I do have to go like very soon. It's like pretty late. It's like midnight.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So, like I said, with the like I was saying about the irrational text in the Bible, Leviticus it states like a man shall not sleep with another man.
Why would that be irrational?
Because if we look at the other Bible texts as well, that says that where God says to love thy neighbor, it it makes it makes that text one both it makes that text one against his own word.
How? I mean, like to love your neighbors. To be honest with them, like if you truly love them, you're not gonna sugarcoat and say, oh yeah, you can go sleep with another man. Like that's not gonna follow, right? And I don't think that would necessarily contradict. Like just because the Bible says gives an instruction, that doesn't mean it's not loving. To give an instruction, to be truthful, that is loving. If anything, I would argue that is loving, because that would preserve you from sin.
But the irrationals of it being that, well, love is love however it's defined, and God does to say love thy neighbor. Love can be
How
defined and interpreted in many aspects, whether it be like romantic love, whether it be um, brotherly love, whether
wait?
it
So
be
are you arguing when God says love your neighbor, He's talking romantically?
no. I'm just giving examples.
Okay.
Um,
So like, what
so
would be the
if
problem
God
then?
does say that, then why in Leviticus does he say that man shall not sleep with other man?
Because He's given instructions to people to not fall into sin.
The word sin. What is your definition of sin?
S- There's multiple definitions. Like one would be the breaking of the law of God. Another one could be the privation of good. That'd more be used to evil though. But like it depends what context you're asking in.
Well,
Like
let's.
here in this definition, I would say like is a voluntary turning away from God. Like that would be the definition I'm using here. But like there's a lot of definitions. But I
Okay.
would say that's the appropriate definition here.
But then, if God loves all, why would God tell people that they can't do this? Like when we mentioned the thing about free will, about how God lets people have free will.
Yeah, so like he's not like saying he's telling you not to do it, but he's not restricting them from doing it. Like he's not saying, well, I'm not gonna let you do it. He's giving instructions, right? So it doesn't break free will. You have the free will. You have the choice to either align with God's will or not. So this would be an instruction in order to align with God's will.
But then that's putting your will on somebody else. As you mentioned, God
Hmm?
gave his subjects free will. If he
Yeah, I
was to
mean,
take that free will away from someone, he would not be loving. He would not be a loving God.
how is
If
he
a
taking
man,
free will away?
because he is saying that a man is not allowed to marry another man or love
Is he
another man.
is he forcing that upon the person, or is he giving instruction? He's giving an instruction, right? So he's not like he's not saying I'm not gonna physically let you do this. He's saying you should not do this. This is an instruction if you want to be preserved from hell, right?
So why would I go to hell if I was to love another man?
Well, there's nothing wrong with loving another man. That's not what it says. There's something wrong with having um sexual relations with another man. There's nothing wrong with loving another man. Like once again, like it's kind of ambiguous. Like how are you defining love here?
Well, love has many definitions. Like I said, romantical, brotherly, neighborly, family based. You've got all different types of love. But if I was to lie with another man in a sexual relationship, that being my own free will, why would God not let me do that?
Because that's not how a man was made. It was made man and woman, not man and man. Also, like the whole point is so you can like reproduce, right? Like you're not going to be able to do that with another man.
But then again, it's the choice of free will.
Yes, like you can freely choose to disobey that law, but that would result in the consequence of hell. That's not going to be the same thing. Like just because like you have free will, that's not going to mean like you can freely choose where to go. Like you can't just say, well, in my earthly time I'm going to disobey you, but like when I die or when I pass away, I'm gonna freely choose to come to heaven. Like it doesn't work like that.
No, no, of course. Um, God is the ultimate judge. We
Yeah.
we know that in religious text that
Yeah.
God
So like
is the only and the ultimate judge.
you said you're a Nordic pagan, right?
Yes, Nordic
Do
pagan.
you believe in an afterlife?
We do.
Do you believe in heaven and hell? Because I'm not too educated on that Nordic paganism.
We in pagan religion as a whole, including Nordic. Well, in Nordic paganism, not paganism as a whole, but Nordic paganism, we have our own versions. To get there, you are to if you are to get into the heavens, which we call Valhalla, you have to have at least died in combat.
Right. So
If you are to be sent to hell, you must have died either naturally or you must have been a coward.
Right, so like I think the same standard applies here, right? Because I think that if we're gonna say like in Christianity like it's not free will anymore because like that sends you to hell. I would say like the same standard applies here. And that is a bit of a too quoque, but you know, just just gonna point out like it's not similar, but like the concept of free will. I would say if you're gonna apply that standard, you would have to say both don't have free will.
But I I wouldn't argue it like that because there is no instruction on whether you actually have to fight or die. It's recommendation.
But
It's how
you
you
just said
get
like
recommended.
which are like who gives you the instruction to be unalived in combat?
No one gives you the instruction. It's a
Who
suggestion. If you want
who
to get into Valhalla, it is suggested that you die in combat. If
who
you
suggests that though?
um Odin the Allfather,
Isn't that like isn't that one of your gods?
he is he is the god of all, the god of all gods.
Which like so then your ultimate standard, your god does instruct that then.
He doesn't instruct, he suggests. Because, like you said, with
Right.
the biblical structure, with the biblical scripture being instructions, we don't really have
I
scripture
see.
as far as I know, but these are just suggestions.
Do you
There are
believe
other
it's
ways.
necessary?
Um, it is it is a free given choice. It's
Which
not
like can you
necessary to die in combat. You can you can take a sacrifice. Um, there is a bit of gory nature in when it comes to the Nordic paganism, but you can take sacrifice to lean your way into Valhalla. You can. I don't know if you can do this in in Christian religion, but you can also fight your way from the Helheim to the Valhalla. So from the hell to the heavens, you
I mean like
can.
there's a similar concept but it's not exactly that. Like we don't believe like you can go down to like hell and you know fight your way to heaven. There's a concept called toll houses where you go through like somewhat of a similar experience. It's not like the same thing. Like there's like some similarity, but it's not really like that. You know, like we don't believe you go down to hell and you can come out.
So something like redemption.
If you die in like venial sin, like you go to the yeah like kind of, but like it's not the same thing. Like you get what I mean. Like you don't go down to hell.
No, I know that in Christian religion, well, in fact, I don't know. So correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a purgatory um, where you can go, maybe redeem yourself, make yourself heaven worthy.
I think like we would accept purgatory insofar as like a post state purification, but we don't believe like in the Roman sense. It does differ a bit. Like I would say like it is pretty similar.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I do have to go now because it's like really late.
Yeah, I know it's nearly 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Anyways, nice discussing with you.
Yeah, you too.